on.
Yep, Dad, you're on.
Okay.
You might say what time it is, what year.
It's all on there. I've already got the little date thing
Oh,
on.
okay. He's got the date on, so,
Okay.
So you know what year it is now.
1993.
Yep.
And I first remember moving to 1007 North Riley in 1926 is when my mom and dad and grandma, my mother's grandfather, father and mother, and my uncle bought a double together. My mother and father lived in the north side of the double on Riley, 1007. My grandparents and my uncle lived on 10th Street, 5002 East 10th.
Which uncle was that?
Uncle Frank. Remember Uncle Frank and the shaving?
Yeah.
Forever shaved.
Yeah.
And that's where we started when we started growing up. And
I never knew that Frank lived there.
yeah,
Okay.
Grandpa was retired, I think, in like 1926.
Grandpa who?
Kirchhoff, my mother's father. So all I can remember, he was always home. My grandmother was always home. My uncle, of course, worked, and so did my father. Mom was home. Grandpa and Mom did all the washing for the families. Washing in those days was done on Mondays. And Grandpa would come over into our house and into the basement, and they'd wash all day on Mondays. And then the rest of the week, why they would just work around the house all the time. My grandmother, my mom's mother, was a fantastic cook and baker. She took that at Earlham College, and she was back in the 1800s when she graduated from Earlham. I think that's in Connorsville or someplace over there. They're very well known in Connorsville, Brookville, and they had her family, all Irish, had savings in Cincinnati, they had cousins in Cincinnati. And she had a celebrated cousin by the name of Mike Ganlon, who invented the blower on the submarine in about 1910 or 1911, and couldn't sell it. The United States wouldn't buy it. He offered it to Germany and became a millionaire. He ended up owning the bank and property and everything in Connorsville.
Huh.
But he never married. Lived in Connorsville with his first cousin, one of my grandmother's cousins. Her name was Katie Patton. A real old Irish biddy. And she would come up and visit. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and she would sit in our front room, and she would always have her powder puff was on a stick, full of powder, and she'd powder under her arms, powder under her arms, powder her face, and all that. Powder would just be all over the room. My brother Fran would come in and says, "Why don't you just wash once in a while instead of putting all that powder on her?" Mom would say, "Oh, quiet, she'll hear you." And he'd say, "I don't care." And all my dad did was laugh.
What about
What was your mom's mother's maiden name?
Egan.
Egan.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Egan and Kirchhoff.
Anna Egan married Frank H. Kirchhoff, Francis Kirchhoff.
Okay.
And her relatives was like her cousin was Father George Dunn, who was pastor up at Cathedral Church in Indianapolis. And when I was a freshman at or when I was in 7th and 8th grade playing CYO football, basketball, and softball, he was the coach of Cathedral Grade School football, basketball, and softball. And every time we'd play Cathedral Parish, why, I'd run into him. And very nice man.
Okay, what about on your dad's side now? Your dad's father and mother? Dad's name is Ben?
Benjamin Franklin McCurdy. And her name was Catherine Marie Kelly. And she was from St. Louis. And I don't know how he met her. His father probably took him over there. And that's where he met her and married her in St. Louis. My father was born in St. Louis. His brother, next brother, was Earl, born 2 years later. He was born in Chicago. His next brother was Harry, or Harold.
Your dad's brothers.
My dad's brother, Harold McCurdy, was born 2 years after that. He was born in Indianapolis. So it shows that my grandfather was a basket weaver, and they followed wherever the trade was going at that time. He also was a professional boxer and a professional wrestler. Very big man, very tough man.
Big hands.
Big hands, real big hands, real hard knuckles. He used to fight carefully.
Blast you to second.
And Dad used to tell stories about how Uncle Earl, when they were younger, and he was like 12 years old, and of course Earl was 10, Harry was 8. Earl would be going out, running around with the girls at 10 years of age, you know, always out at night. And when his father would come in and says, "Everybody in bed?" Dad'd say, "Yeah." Earl wouldn't be in bed. So Uncle Earl would come around and knock on the window, and my dad let him in. And his father would catch him, and instead of giving Uncle Earl a whipping, he'd give my dad a whipping for lying. And Dad said he used to get the crap beat out of him all the time because of Earl.
No.
But he said his father was a very protective type man. He could have been a very, very good provider, except that he drank all the time and spent all his money.
How about the story of the cart?
He also was selling life insurance for Prudential Life Insurance Company in the city here, and got rated as the #1 salesman in the city of Indianapolis. He got promoted and was doing very well, and then he kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, and they finally had to let him go. He wasn't selling any insurance anymore. Then I think my dad told me his father started peddling groceries on a wagon, with a horse and wagon. You came around and you sold groceries. And you buy them at the farmer's market, and then you take them around the neighborhoods and sell them, and they had a little weight thing on there, and sacks and all that. He said that him and his brother Earl would go out and head of the wagon and knock on doors and said we had tomatoes and potatoes and onions and celery and this and that. No, they didn't want anything, and he said, my dad said that he couldn't sell beans. He said nobody buy it. He was always way ahead of the wagon, because he'd get turned down. He said, Brother Earl, he was such a good salesman that he would be selling stuff constantly. And finally, they were in a, I don't know, a street where they had the, parkway in the middle, where the grass is, and you drive on one side and the other. And Dad was so far in front of the wagon that he decided to take a rest. He sat in the parkway.
You guys play foosball?
Finally, some guy come walking out of the house that was there and
They play foosball yet?
kicked him in the rear, trying to get off the parkway. He said his father saw that. He said his dad just waited and got Earl into the wagon, got the horse up there. This guy was still giving my dad all kinds of trouble. He got down from the wagon. He says, "Mister, you're talking to my son." And the guy says, "Oh, well, he shouldn't be sitting in the parkway." My dad said that his father went for the guy, and the guy ran in the house, slammed the door, and he says, "My dad damn near knocked the door down, went on in." The guy went upstairs and hid in his bedroom, and he says he caught him up in the bedroom and beat the living heck out of the guy in the guy's bedroom. The guy called the police and took him down. And at the time, the police chief was named Mike Morrissey, Irish Catholic, and they took his dad down to the jail and all that. And his wife, my grandma, called up Father Wade, who was the pastor at St. Pat's, who was a schoolmate of Mike Morrissey. And he called up Mike and says, "Mike, I got a buddy in there." "Who's that?" "Ben McCurdy." He says, "Well, that big troublemaker," he says, "he beats the hell out of everybody all the time." He says, "He's in here constantly." He says, "I know, but he's got a family and everything. Do me a favor." He says, "Okay, we'll let him go." Out he can go. Well, that was some of my father's times when he was young were kind of a hard time. He also tried to hop a train when he was like 14 or 15.
Your dad?
And missed the train and went and fell into the cinders and got his face just a mass of cinders and blood. Broke his arm, broke a leg. The leg was mangled. And so when they took him into the hospital, the doctor said, "We're going to have to take his leg off." And his father was there with him. His dad says, "No." He says, "Well, it's only holding on by a thread." He says, "Well, put it back, sew it up." The guy says, "No, I can't." He says, "If that kid dies or he doesn't have a leg," he says, "you're going with him. Now sew him up." He says, "Okay, we'll try." And they saved his leg. Saved his arm.
Grandpa's leg?
Yeah. And they had to pick cinders out of his face, around his eyes.
I didn't know that.
I'm 13 years old. And so they let him go, and then of course, after he was like, got well, the only thing he wanted to do from then on was play ball. And he said, I said, "Well, I know your brothers were good athletes." I said, "But your father must have been something." He says, "Yeah, he was a catcher." And he said, I said, and he could remember when he was one of the youngest guys playing hardball, playing third base, and his picture was in the parade, Sunday Parade magazine. Youngest hardball player in the city of Indianapolis. I think he was 14 or 15 years old, playing third base in men's league. He said they would be playing some teams, some of them would be really playing a black team. And they got into a fight. And I said, "Well, was your dad there?" He says, "Well, Dad never missed a game." And he says, "This guy spiked me going into third. He played third." I said, "When I tagged him, I took the ball and hit him right in the mouth." He says, blood splattered everywhere, but he said, man, he cut my leg spiking me. So I hit him. Said the fight started. He said the next thing you know, boy, he said, you know, guys after him, he said his father just started knocking him down. Flattened him right then and there. And he said he remembered his father was the toughest guy, and he said he loved him.
That's what it's
Said
all about.
he probably got more whippings from his dad than all his other brothers combined. But he said he thinks his father loved him more than anybody else. Other than Tommy. Tommy was the baby. Dad was 18 when Tommy was born. So his father was a pretty old man.
Well, I know about those baby guys.
Yeah. They get babied a little.
Oh, God.
So then we, you know, after he married Mom, married her, why we moved over on to Riley. Spent a lot of time at Riley. Had a guy live 2 houses up. That kids used to play in the yard. He was us guys. The yard was an empty field, and we hit the ball over the fence and it'd go into his yard. He wouldn't give you the ball back. So they'd get mad, and then they'd jump over the fence and take the ball and all that. And one day I was out cutting the grass on the curb. Going along there cutting the grass on the curb, and this guy, it was Saturday morning, Friday, I don't know what, summertime, and it was early. And this guy was going to work, coming down there, and he kicked me in the behind. And I was cutting the grass. And I remember old Mom coming out of the house, boy. She went right after that guy. Woo! Boy. That guy was scared to death of her. And he went, you know, where the alley was in the back, he
Yeah.
walked along there. And that's where I was cutting around the curb there. That's when he kicked me, and she's white. She was in the kitchen, and happened to be looking out and saw him. And she gave him holy heck. He walked all the way down, stood on 10th Street at the corner there, waiting on the bus. Mom was right on top of the hill right there at 10th. And she never shut up. Telling him what a mean man he was, never cursed. But, you know, kicking children and doing this. Grandpa Kirkhoff came out standing there. You know, I just never forget those kind of things from your parents, you know. And that, you know, that was one of the things that I can remember. I can remember when I went to service, Mom and Dad drove all the way over to Pennsylvania just to visit me for a weekend. Saturday, and had to go home on Sunday, and it was a long, long drive those days. Very long drive.
Oh yeah, you didn't have any highways like they do now.
No. And those are the things you kind of remember.
Probably would have been 40.
Yeah.
There was no super highway system.
No, you had to go straight across east.
That didn't start until after World War II, after everyone saw the superhighway system in Germany.
Right. So we had great times though as kids. Fran and I went everywhere together. And it just seems a shame that
Shut the door behind you.
things had to, you know, Fran had to die at such a young man at 62. But my father was 80, my mom was 82, or 83, she was 83. And we had many happy times playing cards and doing that.
And in conclusion, do you have a final summary statement here?
Oh, we can take but another time.
Okay.
But
This is the end for now.
The end for now.